계속해서 그 다음 주제 세션으로 넘어가 볼 텐데요. 자, 이번 세션은 디지털 격.
Now let's move on to the next session. This session theme is digital inclusion for all. So we would like to predict future of digital divide, how we are going to bridge the gap, and our ways to improve the situation. Let me introduce the moderator and the panelists. The moderator is Mr. Kim Bong-soo, Vice President of the National International Society Agency, and also via online, Mr. Saki Kori, World Bank Senior Digital Development Specialist. Are you there? Now, we will invite all of the panelists and moderator up to the podium. Please welcome them with a big round of applause. Are you ready? I'm going to give you the microphone. When you're ready, please start. Good afternoon. My name is Kim Bong-soo. I am in charge of digital inclusiveness at the National International Society Agency, Intellectual Society Agency. And every day, digital technology development is taking place rapidly. Under the situation, people adjust to the situation rapidly and innovatively, and young generation are quite familiar with the ICT technologies, and those exposed to new technologies do not feel necessarily any burden in using IT technologies. However, the elderly people, those aged 50 and over, they have difficulty. For example, I myself, when I go to restaurants, there are kiosks to buy meals, and I feel quite uncomfortable having to order food using the kiosk. Considering this, I feel in this area, digital divide. When I receive public administration services, I need to get multiple layers of certification, authentication online, and I feel burdensome. At any rate, many people in varying degrees feel the digital divide. Also, government agencies or public sector as well need to be comfortable in using digital technologies, and we need to equip them with better capabilities to be able to use these technologies. I think that's the role of the government. Therefore, the digitally underprivileged people, for example, the senior members or physically disabled people, or those living in rural districts or under less IT technology environments such as farming and fisheries villages, they need to be quite equipped with how to use these technologies efficiently. In that regard, as a moderator, I would like to introduce two specialists who are quite well versed in this area. First, Ms. Kim Min-ji, CEO of Free Dream. Good afternoon. I am CEO of Free Dream, Kim Min-ji, and we developed remote work system for the disabled. In Korea, we have a law for companies to mandatorily hire the disabled people for some certain percentages. But these companies do not want to hire the disabled, so rather they would like to pay the fee instead of hiring these people. However, recently the law has changed. It's mandatory for the companies to hire the disabled. As a result, we have classified types of jobs for the disabled and how these classified tasks, which kind of tasks can be done by the disabled. So we stored the data in the database and provided matching service.
Corey at World Bank as a senior digital development specialist. Hello, Jackie. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Absolutely. 안녕하세요. Hi, everyone. Unfortunately, I'm not with you. I'm connecting from Busan. That's another proof that connectivity and digital technology can really bring us together. And in the same time, it's so important for everyone to benefit from such kind of privilege. I'm also very grateful and thankful for the Ministry of Economy and Finance for organizing such kind of forum, and also for the partnership that we have in order really to leverage the Korean experience along with other G20 practices in order really to help other countries accelerate their transformation towards digital economy. With this, so our perspective in the World Bank is very similar to the Korean approach, which is we would like to leave no one behind when it is coming to leveraging the digital dividends and the usage of digital technology. So looking forward to our discussion, and thank you one more time for bringing me to such kind of distinguished forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. 네, 그러면은
Now we'll move on to the panel discussion. First of all, Ms. Kim Min-ji, as I mentioned before, we are witnessing rapid change in our society. And digital alienation is inevitable. Could you give us specific examples? As COVID-19 hit us, we know that we can never go back to pre-COVID-19 era. The digital divide is enormous for the disabled. They feel more than 80% that they are disadvantaged. When you go to restaurants, there are kiosks to order food, and in banks, it is difficult for the disabled to get bank services. So in every aspect of the society, they feel vividly that they have difficulty in all areas. So they feel they are marginalized. And during the fourth industrial revolution, they had digital divide, but this is more impactful for the disabled. And I thought that this is actually opportunity for the disabled. So when there's big data, if AI, people are to use the AI, big data is needed. Big data labeling, for example, is this data people or is this data machine or things like that. The categorization and matching is done by people, and all the question data is also worked on by humans. So our company is trying to bridge the gap in digital divide, and more than 300 people are assigned job. Disabled people are assigned the job to be productive in the society.
As mentioned by Ms. Kim, the socially marginalized people should be able to utilize rapidly advancing technologies, but they are marginalized from the benefits of advancement of technologies. So the Korean government, since 1990 until last year, they visited the households with people with disabilities to give them training and education about digital technology. So far, about 200,000 people with disabilities received such education and training. But actually, in Korea, there are a lot more people with disabilities, actually more than statistically compiled. So the government is spending a lot of money in that regard. And there was an increase in the budgets for training and educating people with disabilities in terms of digital technology. Hopefully, we need to come up with a more sustainable way and more effective way.
Personal perspective to help on digital divide and digital gap, especially including the poor, the old, the disabled. Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kang. So I will take from where Ms. Kim already identified, I would say, the issue or the challenge of digital divide, especially the exclusion part of it. So I would like to better understand the global landscape in order really to know what is the size of risk or challenge that the government of Korea is facing right now of not including such kind of category of the population. So first of all, we are living right now in a completely new digital and data-driven era. This came and propelled by the accelerated digital transformation out of the COVID crisis. But what does it mean in number? Just to give you, let's say, some illustration is that within the last 3 years, the digital economy size has been multiplied by 2.5. In terms of, I would say, the use of IoT, the Internet of Things. So we jumped completely from almost 8 billion things to be connected in 2018 to just around, I would say, 22 billion expected to be connected in 2024. So this is a huge jump when it is coming to the integration of the digital technologies within our economy itself. But what happened exactly during the COVID crisis? We saw a jump in the demand of broadband connectivity that increased significantly, almost 50% in 1 year, between the third or the fourth quarter of 2019 and the fourth quarter of 2020. Those are illustrative numbers, just in order really to give you the magnitude of such kind of a new shift that we are experiencing. The strong online shift also of consumers and citizens in general of an increase of 70% of usage of digital technology. We saw even a 34% jump into using technologies within the daily, I would say, journey of companies and businesses. The acceleration of the amount of integration of different level of tech or even platform services that are coming from the government side to deliver a new and personalized services. And we saw during even the pandemic itself, the phenomenal increase of big data analytics to monitor the COVID crisis. However, all these numbers that I shared with you are coming with a big risk. When you don't have the right skills or affordability or access to use the internet, and to benefit from the devices that you have, you are left behind completely. Despite the fact that we have today almost 5 billion users of the internet, which is an increase of last year by almost 5%, 4 to 5%, we are, let's face it, this number is only 62% of the global population. So almost 1/3 is still behind, is still, let's say, not using such kind of technology or having access to the internet. So Korea is not alone in this challenge. And I wanted just to clarify where we are coming from in terms of landscape to better really address such kind of risk.
Thank you, Zakir. 이제 뭐 IoT나 빅데이터
IoT, big data, AI, and many other digital technology are being developed at an exponential pace, and it will increase and widen a digital divide. According to many statistics, about 1/3 of population is lagging behind. That's the forecast. I think from the World Bank's experience, he shared this information. Thank you very much for the information. Now, let's ask the second question to Mr. Kim, Ms. Kim. In Korea, we have very well-developed digital infrastructure by OECD, by the UN. It is really highly regarded. So the Korean population, especially the younger generation, aged 16 and 24, are very versed in digital technology. Aged 55 to 65, they are not familiar with digital technology, so their digital divide is really wide. Compared to the OECD average, it's really high. The reason behind this phenomenon, what is the reasons and what are the solutions to address those generational digital divide? My daughter is a second grade in middle school. She's playing Roblox game on a daily basis. The moment she wakes up in the morning, she starts using a digital device. So Roblox creates her own world virtually. So the gap between the seniors and the MZ generation and those who are newly born will be ever widening. So the Korean government and the Ministry of Science and Technology are training and educating people technologically. The government is making efforts on its part, but the reason my company was just working very fast is because we are a private sector company. The government has a limited time frame and budget, so they have limited room for maneuver. But as a private company, we could just jump in to the underground activities, and we went through a lot of trials and errors. Regarding a labor market for people with disabilities, it was so much backward. In the past, they usually got a job in the forestry industry and simple coffee making industry at a coffee shop. And we also worked together with the special education schools for people with children with disabilities. So we requested them to give a digital education to the students with disabilities. So we can never go back to pre-COVID-19 era. So now contactless working mod is a normal. So people are pretty much familiar with non-contact work. Before the pandemic, people actually rejected working from home. So the COVID-19 pandemic actually created an opportunity for people with disabilities. And they design webs and they proofread documents and questionnaires. So that's their job. So we are presenting this kind of jobs and work to the public organizations, we need to increase digital education for people with disabilities. We actually proposed this idea to public agencies. And internally in my company, we are hiring people with disabilities as an assistant and generalist. We actually categorize them into generalist or assistant and other groups. So assistants are not good at using computers, and generalists can be immediately working as a card maker or assisting simple computer-based work. And there might be 5 million people with disabilities in Korea if you include undocumented the people with disabilities. So it is quite a big portion of the entire population, and there are people who became disabled after birth. So there are 15 types of disabilities. Aside from the cognitive developmental disabilities, the other 13 types of people with disabilities are able to perform work because their cognitive level is normal. So as long as they are trained digitally, they can get jobs, and also this will actually close the digital gap, and also it will close an income gap between people with disabilities and those who are not disabled. And we actually surveyed the turnover rates and everything. So we have very meaningful data. So based on this data, we developed the subtitle service for blind people, and there are many different types of services being created based on the data we produce. In Korea, we have government-funded projects. So the assistive devices, the people with disabilities can be subsidized about 80% for purchasing assistive devices for people with disabilities. So we are doing our part to best assist them.
저는 한 몇 년 전 통계인데 우리나라
This is the statistics from a few years ago, and I learned that more than 4 million people are disabled in Korea, and they have difficulty engaging in economic activities. However, using ICT technology, they do not have to move or go to work. They can work from home, and so they can have a lot of good businesses and job to do. So the society as a whole should consider them, to include them and embrace them to be a better society. Thank you for your good suggestions and ideas. And Mr. Zaki, and thank you for your
Korea, especially over 16 under 24 age, their technology to access to operate ICT is so excellent. On the contrary, between 55 to 65, the older in Korea, their capability to use ICT is so low level. So would you introduce your personal opinion why happened to this kind of problem in Korea, not as well as worldwide, and how to overcome these kinds of digital divide and gap, please?
Thank you, Mr. Kim. So let's make sure that we are coming together with the same understanding of the divide here. While digital technologies are available, but not everyone is using it to the maximum. And this uptake gap is increasing right now. And this is what is causing I would say, the exclusion or the digital divide. So this is, for me, will be the basis of an analysis when we would like really to go deeper into identifying what are the reasons for such kind of gap. While Ms. Kim already defined or tried really to provide the perspective when it is coming to physical disability. I would like to go a little bit to a more expanded perspective when it is coming to the social and economic reason behind such kind of inclusion. So let's also make sure that based on research and based on our economic modeling, the productive use of technologies is the one that is essential for creating jobs or increasing productivity. So it's not about just access. It's really about the use and leverage, harnessing such kind of technology. So with this, I will just go very quickly through some of the findings of our recent research. So we are seeing, for example, some of the reason or the risks, the main risks that need to be addressed when it is coming to the exclusion part is that I gave, for example, in my first intervention, that more than half of the world population remains unconnected, basically. So access to connectivity is really very, very important here. And even if I'm physically fit, but I do not have the right speed, the right level of quality of the broadband, or even I don't have any access to connectivity, still can be considered as a vulnerable population there. This is very much illustrative or illustrated when we are looking at the gap between rural and urban divide. Here, for example, I can tell you that 37% are less likely to use mobile broadband if they are in rural areas and not within the city or urban fabrics. The same exactly challenge will be coming as an exclusion around the gender divide. 20% here of women are less likely to use effectively mobile connectivity and broadband, for example. Of course, this is not comparable to other areas like South Asia, for example, where this number is significantly higher by 51%, or even in sub-Saharan Africa, which is the 37%. So it's definitely less, but it exists. And we need to consider this as one of the reasons or one perspective of vulnerable population that they are not benefiting to the maximum out of what we are seeing as the digital dividends here. There is an economic also reason which is related to affordability that I will talk lengthy maybe at the end on it. But just to let you know is that when I'm talking about affordability of access to an effective connection or device, for example, is that this shouldn't be, if I'm looking at downloading 1 gigabyte on the broadband, mobile broadband, this shouldn't be costing more than 2% per month of my monthly income. If it is more than this, so definitely there is an issue with affordability. Luckily enough is that there is a great progress that happened in terms of quality of the broadband, in terms of affordability here in Korea. So there are a lot of good things that we can build on it in order really to address the other social, physical, or even economic vulnerability that are causing such kind of divide. Let me stop here so we can go with the flow of our discussion.
Thank you. 뭐 전문가로서
As an expert, No matter how much ICT devices and services and networks are facilitated, still rural communities and urban areas, they have divide in terms of accessibility. And also, this is a social problem, so it is very hard to address such a divide. Let me ask another question. In Korea, as was discussed earlier, those aged 20 and under, they are actually well utilizing IT technology, but again, seniors and people with disabilities, they are in poor conditions in terms of internet accessibility and accessibility to digital technology. How we can increase their and improve their digital literacy. So usually, particularly, their literacy is really low. Is there any aspect where technology can be an important factor to improve their digital literacy? Actually, on the ground, I meet a lot of people with disabilities. And I'm actually surprised myself at their competence. They work really hard. So whenever I meet people from companies, I raise my voice to them. People with disabilities are better than me in terms of using computers. So when we receive a resume from a person with disability, we evaluate whether they can use computers, whether they can use both hands, what is the severity of their disability. So using our system, we match the person to a relevant company. So by type of job and the performance and everything, we actually have data about people with disabilities. So all this data actually make us realize what types of jobs need to be further developed for people with disabilities. So it seems like there has been some progress in that context. So AI job matching platform is a project that we were selected as the owner of project by the government. So we are working on the project right now. I believe such digital technology will surely benefit people with disabilities. I'm quite hopeful and positive about that. And ICT is being developed further and further. And there are many types of people with disabilities, especially those with speech impairment. And for them, we use deep learning. So there will be a voice service for them. And also, there are people with some difficulties in using their hands. So we are utilizing some technologies in that regard. So if we add IT technology to improve their skills and abilities, I'm sure one of the people with disabilities will achieve more than actually 6-digit salary, more than $100,000 as their annual salary. And actually a lot of people with disabilities are lacking in information. That's why they cannot access digital services or digital technology, because they are pretty much limited in terms of accessing information. Even though we have really good welfare centers in the community, but on the surface it looks good, but it's quite superficial assistance, I believe. Maybe I'm using too strong a language. So we need to provide policies that are really required on the ground for people with disabilities. That's my voice right now.
최근에 올해 상반기하고
Recently, and during the first half of this year, I have visited companies that provide solutions for the disabled. And under difficult situations, they have developed many good solutions for these people. And last year, some companies formed a consortium and exported their solutions and earned more than $6 million We are a community of all the population, and a collaboration with these companies, I think, is needed. Now, we have only about 10 minutes left for this discussion session. So I would like to ask a question regarding international cooperation. The digital development is creating a lot of jobs, creating services, and so on. But these things will be beneficial to IT advanced countries such as the United States and Europe. However, developing countries might feel different. There might be less competitiveness. Their personal information and privacy data can be transferred to other countries and digital devices in other services. How should we bridge the digital divide gap from the international society and from the perspective of government? What kind of efforts should be exerted, and what can be problems? And so I would like to raise this question directed to Mr. Zeki.
Can require my question. So would you publish your personal opinion in this kind of issue, please?
Thank you. Let me start. Maybe I address this issue is by clarifying the approach that is used from the World Bank, what is happening within the circle of the World Bank as a strong development partner to many of the different international organizations, but also on the bilateral level with some countries like Korea, for example, and try really to identify what are the issues or let's say the interventions where digital cooperation can really go a long way on the impact itself when it is coming to digital or closing the digital divide. So first of all, we are broadening the perspective a little bit from disability towards a paradigm or let's say a discussion about inclusion and diversity. So that's critical because this is how we can really get the maximum impact in order really to accelerate such kind of transformation and growing the digital economy, but also in the same time leave no one behind. So it's critical to shift this paradigm towards the inclusion side and address the risk of exclusion. The second point is we really need to rethink connectivity when it is coming to digital cooperation, which means that for many years, almost 2 decades, we were focusing on universal coverage of connectivity or access to internet, for example. We need to shift this into a new paradigm that is looking at universal use of technology. And this is for more impact and definitely better inclusion for a different part of the society, either on the gender side, the location, or even on the physical, let's say, challenges they do have. Given the major uptake and the use gaps that we talked about in this session, so the priority of intervention definitely is in order really to focus on 3 things. One is on the coverage gap. I'm talking here about expanding the rural connectivity, trying really to make sure that social center or schools are really providing or are connected, but providing a right node for such kind of accessibility, innovative business model for pushing really a kind of a quality connectivity there, but also increasing the capacity of the data infrastructure as we are seeing such kind of transformation toward a completely data-driven economy right now. There is another gap that international collaboration and digital cooperation is addressing is when it is coming to the usage gap. And here is we are talking about the issue of affordability of the devices, reforming some regulation in order really to break the competition or increase the competition and lower the monopoly or decrease the amount of customs and taxes on such kind of devices so it can be affordable. As I said, gender digital divide is key here. It's everyone within the society. It's inclusion, and everyone needs to contribute to this new economy. And this is how this is an area where things are accelerated. More when it is coming to the digital skills, and I'm talking here about all the three levels of basic functional skills that can enable, let's say, the preliminary usage, or even generic skills that can really have the effective use of each one of the technology or the devices and the software and the platform that we have, from just moving files into a more interaction and transaction by using the technology for our own good, to a higher level of skills and understanding that some of the population within the communities, they really need special attention by allocating, like what Ms. Kim already identified as applied technology, either on the AI activated applications or even other than this here. So those are the different level of skills, not only one of them. And definitely the relevant content. We didn't talk about some gaps within some communities. Maybe here we have a homogeneous language, but in other countries, things are definitely more problematic when you have within the same country different dialect or the substance, the content that is accessible is not interested for specific population or some age of the population, for example. I would like just also to give the example of a country like Finland, which provided a course on the usage of AI services or AI-enabled services to all the citizens, starting by a very different age group, which is 75 years old plus. This is the first group that has been addressed. Every single citizen is included into this course. And by the way, the same course has been adopted by the EU in order really to go through all the European community countries. Let me finalize, let's say, my points were by the third area of collaboration, which is the readiness itself. You know, there is a new divide, more than just the disability here about connectivity or usage, which is the frontier technology. We talked a lot about the AI and the big data analytics and so on. If you have no data to train, or you do not have access to the right computing power, so still you are really facing some divide with the people that they do have access, or the countries that they do have such kind of access. And this is how we are seeing more and more investment into the area of adoption of and usage of frontier technology, in addition to the regulation for an enabling environment for more competition, more innovation, more assessment and reform of the trajectory that we are having, in addition to integration of a more role for a very important stakeholder into this, which has the responsibility to do their share, which is the private sector and the industry itself. Finally, I would like to highlight that partnership start always by sharing knowledge. That's exactly what the World Bank is doing through the Korea Digital Development Program that has been, let's say, supported by the Ministry of Economy and Finance, but also when it is coming to working on different levels, either on the regional partners with the ASEAN, for example, for this region, or development partners like Korea, South Korea, but with the other G20, or even the forums where developing countries are existed, like the African Union and others. I would like just to finalize by saying is that there is a lot to do with regulators and civil society when it is coming to bringing visibility about digital dividends and digital divide for the time being. I hope that I touch on the main issues that are basically the foundational element for an effective international cooperation to address the issue of inclusion and the risk of exclusion and digital divide.
Thank you, Jackie. 상당히 그 오랜 축적된 경험과 지식을 짧은 시간 내에
Very much. You have accumulated knowledge and vast amount of information, and the coverage gap and accessibility, and I have mentioned a few things, but you have touched upon other issues such as gender gap and other issues. I think those are important issues in the international organizations. Domestically, the digitally marginalized people and the fund for them is not enough, and the international corporations, I am amazed that about their vast area and knowledge upon touching upon various issues. But Korea, on our part, would like thank you for your precious opinions. And we have well over time constraints. Is it okay for them to raise questions from the audience? I will introduce the two questions, and Ms. Park will answer the questions. The younger generations are digital native people, and the elderly, older generation are not accustomed to these technologies. Is there any device to close the gap between the two generations? This is a difficult question, and it's difficult to answer with a few sentences. So I propose that in the next opportunity in another forum, other specialists will, I guess, propose better solutions. Secondly, Mr. Park mentioned that there's need to be continued support. Are there any practical measures for this? From my perspective, their ability to use the PC and mobile devices are excellent. Using internet and searching data is sometimes better than physically normal people. But in some areas, there's huge gap. For example, they have difficulty acquiring financial information and other divide in other actual practical leading of daily lives. Also, their family members should help the disabled and many other difficult tasks. So I think customized curriculum for these people with disability is needed. For example, family members of these people with disabilities and things like the specific customized education programs. And I think the current movement is quite encouraging. The chairman of the Asia Pacific Confederation of Disabled People, he actually visited us and studied the market and our categorization of types of disability in our database impressed him. And we have various IT tools to help those people with disabilities. So I am hopeful that the digital divide in that area is closing, and the government's next budget for bridging the gap has increased by more than 10 billion won. So government itself is willing to support and help in this regard. Now, I think time's almost up for this session. I would like to conclude this session. Thank you for your participation.
Knowledge-based alternatives obviously help our audience, and including me and Ms. Kim, understand, especially international cooperation. Thank you very much.
네.
Thank you very much. It was a panel discussion about how to support people who are digitally marginalized with focus on people with disabilities. We couldn't cover all, but still we gained a lot of insights. Once again, I'd like to thank the moderator and panelists.